In a world where a slogan, "there's an app for that," is all too commonplace, there can be an overwhelming amount of applications out there, and sometimes it's really hard to even know about some little tool or a really useful program. With this video today, I want to show you some of my favorite applications that I use on my macOS system. There are applications ranging from utilities all the way to my creative work, as well as programming, and of course also just the random browsing the internet. So with all that said, let's jump over to the screen and have a look into the applications that I want to feature today. Now I want to start out with applications that are specifically in the utility realm. These are applications that are not specifically tied to any given task, but they make my life working with macOS that much easier. The first one I want to showcase here is called Paletro, and it basically is a keyboard shortcut that gives you access to the menu bar items for any given application. This is specifically useful when you don't want to go back to your mouse to get a specific task done. Something that I do with this very often, for example, is exporting files from my Premiere Pro timeline just by going onto the Paletro application. Now, I have set it up the way that the developers intended to be used, with Command, Shift, and P as the command, basically, and that's the keyboard shortcut. And if I open this up with Safari with Command, Shift, P now, you can see that I have basically everything available that usually is in the top menu bar up here. So, for example, something that I can do here would be to clear the cache with empty caches. So with Paletro, opening this up, and then, for example, I can enter cache, and with that, I am immediately shown the shortcut that I can then try to remember, but I can also just hit enter here, and then the empty cache command is run for me. This is incredibly useful, and it is not just something that works in Safari. It works pretty much everywhere. It works in Finder, it works in Premiere Pro, in Audition, all kinds of programs that don't necessarily provide some kind of command plate like that themselves. But some applications provide a command plate themselves, and for that purpose, you can actually disable this command plate in certain programs. For example, in Xcode, in Atom, or Sublime Text. And these are mostly actually already pre-configured so that you don't have to do those settings yourself, but you can do them yourself right here. And for example, with an application like Sublime Text, you already have a command plate in that application, so it would not make sense to run Paletro in that application as well. The next application I want to showcase is called aText. And this basically is a typing accelerator. I love this application because it is something that I have been using for a very long time. And at this point, I don't really want to move away from it, even though some of the other applications that I'm going to feature here have similar features. And if you want to keep it nice and simple, maybe it would make more sense, for example, for you to use Alfred or BetterTouchTool, which also have some kind of snippet implementation. However, for this, I can, for example, show you in Sublime Text. Basically, aText is an application that helps you type faster certain things that you type all the time. For me, for example, I have my email address set up as a snippet. So if I do the exclamation point and then CSE and hit a space or enter, then it will automatically type that out for me. The same thing would work with my phone number and similar things that I continuously use and need every single day. Also, if I want to link, for example, to my Instagram, I can do that very easily as well. But it's not just limited to that. You can also do something like, for example, date, and it will give me the date. If I do something like date TT, it will give me the date and the time. Date B will give me the beautiful version of the date. So there's a lot of things that you can do with aText, but you're also not limited to that. You can also include, for example, the last thing that you copied into your clipboard also and work with that in a snippet. So there's just so many ways that I can't even cover in this video. So I have made a video about aText in the past, which is obviously about a previous version, but for the most part, that is still correct. And I will have a link for that in the description below and also linked up here. The next application is called BetterTouchTool. BetterTouchTool is something that is just a massive utility box with so many things that you can do with it. It's just mind-blowing. But for the most part, this application focuses on trackpad shortcuts as well as keyboard shortcuts next to the TouchBar, which also has its own place in this application. Now, what you can do with BetterTouchTool is, for example, create system-wide as well as application-specific shortcuts. For me in specific, I have my whole window moving, for example, to shortcuts. And so I can do things like have a window just cover half of the screen or cover the other half or just cover a quarter, or even I have something where I have thirds. So I have 1/3 and then 2/3 on the right-hand side. Those are the shortcuts that I mostly use when I have my internal desktop with just a normal 1920 by 1080 kind of layout. But I also have certain shortcuts that I use whenever I am on my main desktop with the ultra-wide right in front of me, because there I have something. So I have basically the left quarter and the right quarter, and in the center I basically have the main space, which is about the size of a full HD screen. So I have these areas left and right for something like a chat or a document that I want to keep open, but in the center I have my main window, so to say. So those are the main shortcuts that I use BetterTouchTool for. However, there are also other things that you can set up with this. And for me, some of the more interesting ones that I recently set up for myself are these keyboard sequences. And here you can see that I, for example, have the shortcut in Premiere Pro to hit Z twice in a row, and that fires a keyboard shortcut sequence. So basically this would stop the playback, wait 0.05 seconds, and then hit L twice, which basically would give me a playback in about 1.5x speed, so that I can just get there very easily. Otherwise, I would have to hit K and then double L myself, and this just makes it that much easier. The other thing that you can also do with this specific plugin or with this program is that you can actually have things set up with the TouchBar, so that you basically overwrite the system functionality of the TouchBar and you can have your own things there. For example, to have a 2-finger swipe left and 2-finger swipe right for volume up and down or brightness up and down, as well as you have the ability to add custom buttons that do certain things for you, like show the time, the weather, and even Bitcoin prices if you want to see those every now and then with your TouchBar on your computer. And that is one of the things that this can do as well. Another thing that the BetterTouchTool has implemented in the last few months and years is that you also have a clipboard history. However, I prefer to use the Alfred app for that, and that's what I want to showcase next. And here we have the Alfred app. This is actually something that is available for free in a kind of standard package, and then you can also purchase the Powerpack. I personally am a Powerpack user for a couple of years at this point. I've made videos about Alfred on this channel. I will link a couple in the description below, and I even have made a Skillshare class about the features of the standard version of Alfred. I am still thinking about making more classes about Alfred because there's just so much that you can do with it, and also so much with which you can increase your productivity. So this is a program that I use every single day. It is basically my multi-search bar as well as clipboard history, and I have my own extended automation features, which are called workflows in here. And I use those constantly for all kinds of different things. And this is something that is so incredibly valuable to me. It's just mind-blowing. Some of the basic things that you can do with this are the same things that you could do with Apple's Spotlight that comes with macOS. But for example, you can do something like a calculation here, and it would give you the result. And you can also do more than that. You can use this to, for example, search for programs that you want to use, but you can also add URLs in this. It will also look through for example, your bookmarks that you have in your browser, and then you can basically run those and it opens those up in your browser. And there's just so much more that I can't even begin to cover everything that this program does. And I would mainly just say, check out my class on Skillshare or the other videos that I've made about Alfred specifically. There's so much that you can do with it. It's incredible. And if you get down to the workflows, it's even more crazy. So that's Alfred. And we have to move on because we have a lot to cover here. The next application I want to feature is called Vanilla. Vanilla is a super, super tiny program. It's a download for free, and I think there's a pro version available, and I will have a link for you in the description below. With this program, essentially, you can hide things in the menu bar. And for my own setup, for example, you can see at the top right here, I have just a few tiny things there, but I also have this little arrow. And if I hit that, you can see there's way more in there than you would have expected just looking at the rest to the top right. I like my system to be as minimal as possible. Granted, running an extra application to hide things is not necessarily the most power efficient. However, I like my setup way better when I am able to hide things like this. And with Vanilla, I just love how I can just move things out of the way that I don't usually use every single day, and I can hide them away, and I just have the absolute necessary information highlighted to the top right, and everything else is nice and cleaned up, but still available, which is important to me. So that's Vanilla. And we are moving on to iStat menu, which is also a utility that I run in the menu bar. And here, the interesting part I wanted to mention here is that iStat menu is obviously something with which you can do a lot of things with your statistics and your internals, like your CPU usage, your GPU usage, your network usage, and so on and so forth. However, the thing that I actually wanted to highlight here is that it not only gives you those CPU, RAM, and other things, it also gives you, for example, the ability to show different battery statuses in the menu bar. So for example, right here, I have my max battery to the left. Then in the middle, I have my keyboard, which is a Bluetooth Apple keyboard. And that also shows me the battery status. And then to the right, I also have the battery status of my trackpad, which I use as my main mouse. So that's one thing that I love about iStat menus, but the other is the time feature. And I actually just last year or so found out that this application also gives you the ability to stack different times on top of each other. So as you can see here, I have the central time of the US, Eastern time, the CET as in European Central Time, and also Singapore time up here in the menu bar. And of course, with the macOS time at the top right here, I also have my local time that is displayed there. So that gives me a great overlook of all the interesting and necessary times that I need for my daily work. The next application is a tool that I like to use every now and then, specifically when working for websites or any graphic design things and I need to pick a color. I notice this more and more useful whenever I'm working with people that provide me with a logo file and want to have their website in that same color scheme, but then don't provide color codes. So with a color picker tool, it is much, much easier to be able to pick those colors out of, for example, a logo. And the great thing about this specific application is that you can actually decide which code you would like to have in the clipboard history after you're done picking the color. Because some systems, and specifically the macOS color picker, don't really give you a useful code. For example, the Apple Color Picker only gives you certain numbers and you have then to type those up. With this tool, you just hit a key with the picked color and you have that available in whatever format you choose, for example, RGB or the hexadecimal code. It's easy as that, and I love it for that specific purpose. Now, we are coming to the end of the utility section slowly but surely, but the next one is called SoundSource, and this is from Rogue Amoeba. This is an application which I really love, and that is specifically because it gives me the ability to, one, reroute audio very, very easily, and two, and that is probably more important for me, is that this actually gives me the ability to basically change my volume of my external monitor. Because most of the time I am running with an external monitor right in front of me here with my ultra wide, and this is a HDMI connected monitor. I have used it as a USB-C or Thunderbolt connected monitor, but now it's HDMI connected. And it doesn't matter if it's USB-C or Thunderbolt connected or HDMI connected, you are not able to change the output volume of the sound coming from the monitor without any additional tools. Now, I have covered a couple of other ones like EQ, Mac, as well as monitor control on the channel in a video, but SoundSource is a way more solid as well as way more feature-rich application that I like to use for this purpose. And if I want, I can even use this to also add some EQ to my output, or if I have my headphones on, I can also use basically a profile for those to make those sound just a little bit better. Another great thing about this is that you can easily change your input and output sources, as well as change the levels on those or mute them completely. So that's SoundSource, and it is a lifesaver in many different ways. And especially with the changing of the output volume on my external screen, this is a great application to use. Now, last but not least, in the utility section, we have Lulu, which is a firewall and kind of like a replacement for Little Snitch if you don't want to spend money on that application. Lulu is a completely free application. It's open source. And basically, this tool asks you every time a program wants to access the internet if it should be allowed or blocked. And I oftentimes like to be in control of this process. So I want to control which applications can reach out to the internet and which don't. So this is my tool of choice at the moment to be able to basically control my network traffic and only give certain applications the right to go online. Now, there's not really much for this. You install it, you set it up with the privacy settings as well as those things with like the internal network components. But once that's done, it will automatically detect whenever a program wants to access the internet. The alert will look like this, and you can see certain details, and then you can hit allow, block, or temporarily block or temporarily allow. So that's something that I might cover in a future video. If you're interested, leave a comment down below. But for now, let's move on to something called Google Play Music Desktop Player. Now, I would love if Google would just make an official desktop player for Google Music, or rather now YouTube Music. And the great thing about this player is that it works with YouTube Music as well as Google Music, which now is discontinued, so it's just YouTube Music anyways. What this does is essentially giving you the YouTube Music platform in a specific window on your computer, so you don't have to have it in a browser window. This is specifically important for me because I like to quit and reopen my browsers every now and then, specifically for resource usage on a computer, because we all know those can be quite power hungry or RAM hungry. So with this, I have a specifically dedicated application that is doing the job of playing music back. Now, this is an open source solution. It is updated every now and then, and for the most part, it actually works really, really well. It has great feature integration with the media buttons on your keyboard, and you can easily change certain aspects. It also has integrations into Last.fm and more. I overall am really happy that someone takes the time to actually develop this to make a music player for YouTube Music on your macOS system. And I think they might even, yes, provide Linux as well as Windows players as well. As I've mentioned in my favorite applications on iOS video, I use YouTube Music instead of, for example, Spotify or Apple Music because it gives me one charge for both platforms, essentially, giving me music as well as YouTube without any advertisement and the original content. So that's why I chose that, even though the implementations of those offline applications and offline players isn't as amazing as, for example, with Spotify or Apple Music. But with that, we can move on to the next application, which is kind of like a utility that I need every now and then, and it is called AppCleaner. Now, this essentially is just an application that you drag and drop your application into that you want to remove from your system. Because basically, some of those applications leave stuff behind somewhere in the library folder and similar places. With AppCleaner, it is very simple to just drag and drop that onto this application, and then this will make sure to search for all kinds of places where data might be stored for that app, and that way you can make sure that you mostly remove everything. Now, this is not a 1000% solution. It probably will still leave certain things behind in some cases, but for the most part, it works really, really well. If you like to install new things, try them out, and then want to remove them afterwards very easily. So that's a free application that you can use for that purpose. I have seen videos online that question the business model of this application, so I'm not necessarily sure about that part. You can donate, so maybe that's the only reason that this is provided and that is the only business model behind it. But I like to use it up to this point, and it is helpful in getting rid of everything else. And if you have something like Lulu in place, then you can, of course, block, for example, the internet access for this application so that it does not access the internet without you knowing about it. I didn't think this video would get as long as it did, so I'm going to cut it in half here. There will be a part 2 linked in the description as well as up here, which will be coming out one day after this first part. I hope you have found interesting applications in this set or in this video. If you have, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Which one did you not know about and which one are you going to try out for yourself? If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up so that helps the algorithm so other people may find this video and these applications as well. And of course, if you have any questions, you can leave those in the comment section as well. Now, you can, of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming videos that I have planned for you. Hit the bell icon for future notifications whenever I have videos coming out. And I will see you in the next video, part 2. Ciao, ciao.